But, it's so funny to me how confused, I don't know if funny is the right word, but it's noteworthy to me how confused Robert Mueller was. And, and I just can't get over, by the way, James Sensenbrenner's voice, too, because I also find that quite intriguing. But anyway, as he's asking him questions, you can hear in our last clip just how confused Bob Mueller was. But here's another one where he seems to get totally confused in what is otherwise a pretty straightforward question if you would just listen to the question. Here you go.
There are 182 pages in raw evidentiary material, including hundreds of references to 302, which are interviews by the FBI, for individuals who've never been cross-examined and which did not comply with the special counsel's governing regulation to explain the prosecution or declination decisions reached. Correct?
And where are you reading from on that?
I'm reading from my question.
Then could you repeat it?
Okay. You have 182 pages of raw evidentiary material with hundreds of references to 302s who were never been cross-examined and which didn't comply with the governing regulation to explain the prosecution or declination decisions reached.
This is one of those areas which I decline to discuss.
Okay, then let...
And would direct you to the report itself.
Okay. Well, I looked at the 182 pages of it.
I mean, it's like trying to – the guy doesn't know anything about his own report, but he'll direct you right back to the report that he doesn't even know anything about. I mean, Pat George, wasn't that pretty much par for the course? I saw you kind of rolling your eyes in there.
Yes, that was what's so frustrating is like he wasn't there and the repeating.
Right.
The repeating of the questions really bothered me.
Right.
You're not paying attention?
Right.
And when they read from the report, it sounds like Charlie Brown voices, adult voices in Charlie Brown to me.
Well, and maybe that's what it sounded like to Bob Mueller, too. He's like, wah, 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 wah. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Wah,
he
wah,
wrote
wah, wah. Now, here's something that really shocked me, and this is with Steve Chabot from Ohio. And this is one that just absolutely shocked me. Listen to this. Mueller doesn't even know who Fusion GPS is. Now, come on, guys. You know who Fusion GPS is. That was the group that Glenn Simpson was working with who put together the Steele dossier on which a lot of this whole thing is based. And Bob Mueller doesn't know who it is.
Director Mueller, my Democratic colleagues were very disappointed in your report. They were expecting you to say something along the lines of, here's why President Trump deserves to be impeached, much as Ken Starr did relative to President Clinton back about 20 years ago. Well, you didn't. So their strategy had to change. Now they allege that there's plenty of evidence in your report to impeach the president, but the American people just didn't read it. And this hearing today is their last best hope to build up some sort of groundswell across America to impeach President Trump. That's what this is really all about today. Now, a few questions. On page 103 of Volume 2 of your report, when discussing the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting, you reference, quote, the firm that produced the Steele reporting, unquote. The name of that firm was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
And you're on page 103?
103, that's correct, Volume 2. When you talk about the firm that produced the Steele reporting, the name of the firm that produced that was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not familiar with that.
Let me just help you. It was. It's not a trick question. Right? It was Fusion GPS.
He's not familiar with that. I mean, wouldn't that's one of the central facts at play that led to the creation of his report? But let's keep moving because Steve Chabot stays on this line of questioning about Fusion GPS and the involvement with Hillary Clinton and the DNC and the fact that Fusion GPS was working for them.
At the same time, Fusion GPS was working to collect opposition research on Donald Trump from foreign sources on behalf of the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee. It also was representing a Russian-based company, Prevezon, which had been sanctioned by the U.S. government. Are you aware of that?
It's outside my purview.
Outside his purview. This is a theme, wasn't it? Outside my purview, outside my bailiwick. Any questions he didn't want to answer, that's what he said. Well, let's see what happens when Steve Chabot asks him about that meeting between Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya, which occurred at the Trump Tower. But there were two meetings also surrounding that meeting. Remember, because first she met with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS, and afterwards she met with Glenn Simpson of Fusion GPS. By the way, Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS, those names don't appear anywhere in the Mueller report.
One of the key players in the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting was Natalia Wisniewska, who you described in your report as a Russian attorney who advocated for the repeal of the Magnitsky Act. Wisniewska had been working with none other than Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS since at least early 2014. Are you aware of that?
Outside my purview.
Thank you. But you didn't mention that or her connections to Glenn Simpson and Fusion GPS in your report at all.
Outside my purview. Outside my purview. The guy with an unlimited scope for an investigation, apparently everything is now outside of his purview. And this type of hypocrisy just continued on and on. But you'll hear in the next clip where Ken Buck of Colorado is questioning him, you'll hear what the plan is at the very end. The plan is to try to indict the president after he leaves office. But I love what Ken Buck points out, which is the hypocrisy of the reasoning that Robert Mueller gives for not making a charging decision on the obstruction of justice counts.
The regulations concerning your job as special counsel state that your job is to provide the Attorney General with a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions reached by your office. You recommended declining prosecution of President Trump and anyone associated with his campaign because there was insufficient evidence to convict for a charge of conspiracy with Russian interference in the 2016 election. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Was there sufficient evidence to convict President Trump or anyone else with obstruction of justice?
We did not make that calculation.
How could you not have made the calculation with the regulation?
The OLC opinion, Office of Legal Counsel, indicates that we cannot indict a sitting president. So one of the tools that a prosecutor would use is not there.
Okay, but let me just stop. You made the decision on the Russian interference. You couldn't have indicted the president on that, and you made the decision on that. But when it came to obstruction, you threw a bunch of stuff up against the wall to see what would stick.
Well,
and that is fundamentally unfair.
I would not agree to that characterization at all. What we did is provide to the Attorney General in the form of a confidential memorandum our understanding of the case, those cases that were brought, those cases that were declined, and that one case where the president cannot be charged with a crime.
Okay, but could you charge the president with a crime after he left office?
Yes.
You believe that you could charge the president of the United States with obstruction of justice after he left office?
Yes.
Whew, well, that's the plan then. You can hear what the plan is because he knows the answer to that. He doesn't know the answer to any of the other questions anybody wants to ask him. He's got to it's not within his purview or he'll refer you to the report. But on that question, the answer is an unequivocal yes, that's exactly what we plan to do. Well, listen, we want to jump right now into the Louis Gohmert because we are running out of time, and I had so much I wanted to share with you, so many little nuggets in this one. But listen how hard it is for Louis Gohmert to get Bob Mueller to admit that Mueller and Comey are friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mueller, well, first, let me ask a unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman, to submit this article, Robert Mueller Unmasked, for the record.
Without objection.
Now, Mr. Mueller, who wrote the 9-minute comments you read at your May 29th press conference?
I'm not going to get into that.
Okay, so that's what I thought. You didn't write it. A 2013 puff piece in the Washingtonian about Comey said basically when Comey called, you drop everything you were doing. It gave examples. You're having dinner with your wife and daughter. Comey calls, you drop everything and go. The article quoted Comey as saying, if a train were coming down the track, and I quote, at least Bob Mueller will be standing on the tracks with me. Yeah. You and James Comey have been good friends or were good friends for many years, correct?
We were business associates. We both started off in the Justice Department about this
You were good
time.
friends. You can work together and not be friends, but you and Comey were friends.
We were friends.
That's my question. Thank you for getting to the answer.
So why was he resistant to answering that? Because he knows it looks bad, because he knows he probably shouldn't have been the special counsel investigating that if he had a personal relationship with Jim Comey, because that would potentially conflict him. as to what role he was playing. Was he supposed to be Comey's friend, or was he supposed to be an independent investigator? Well, listen to how Louis Gohmert gets into the fact that Robert Mueller did not vet his team of experts who he's so proud of their work. He didn't do a darn thing to vet them. Listen here.
Most prosecutors want to make sure there's no appearance of impropriety, but in your case, you hired a bunch of people that did not like the president. Let me ask you, when did you first learn of Peter Strzok's animus toward Donald Trump?
In the summer of 2017.
You didn't know before he was hired?
I'm sorry, what did you?
You didn't know before he was hired for your team?
Know what?
Peter Strzok hated Trump.
Okay.
You didn't know that before he was made part of your team. Is that what you're saying?
I did not know that.
All right. When did you first learn?
When we did find out, I acted swiftly to have him reassigned elsewhere in the FBI.
Well, there's some discussion about how swift that was. But when did you learn of the ongoing affair he was having with Lisa Page?
About the same time I learned from Strzok.
Did you ever order anybody to investigate the deletion of all of their texts off of their government phones?
Once we found that Peter Strzok was an author of...
Did you ever...
May I finish?
Well, you're not answering my question. Did you order an investigation into deletion and reformatting of their government phones?
No, there was an IG investigation ongoing.
Okay, wow. We're going to get, yeah, you can hear that Louis Gohmert is building to something, and we know him well. You can hear the steam is starting to build up in the train, and the train is starting to move down the tracks. And when we come back, you're going to hear the heated exchange when Louis Gohmert really lets everything fly. And this was the end of his 5 minutes when he really gets into Bob Mueller. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.